Hello everyone, I'm Liam and welcome to another episode of the Indie Game Review, a weekly series in which I'll find new indie releases on Steam, play them for a couple of hours, and then I'll give my impressions and my opinions on whether I think you will enjoy them. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and watch another video. I have a couple links in the description of every episode, or you can click here to watch one now. And make sure to comment below any indie game you want me to review. In today's episode, the game we're going to be reviewing is Jotunnslayer, Hordes of Hel. Jotunnslayer is an isometric, bullet heaven-esque roguelike based on Norse mythology. Think Vampire Survivors mixed with Hades with Diablo visuals. The game was released on Steam in early access on the 21st of January 2025 by development team Games Farm and Artillery, as well as publishing team Grindstone Games, who have released games such as Preserve and Die by the Blade. Now I'm fairly inexperienced with these type of games, but when I saw the trailer on Steam, I thought it looked super exciting and I could not wait to get stuck in. But as always, before we talk about the gameplay, let's dive into the back end and the settings of the game. Jotunnslayer is made within the Unity engine. Now we've spoke about the Unity engine before, so I won't go into detail, but basically Unity is one of, if not the biggest game engine out there. It's the engine behind huge games such as Phasmophobia, Cuphead, Hollow Knight, and so many more. Out of all the indie games I've reviewed so far in this series, Jotunnslayer has by far the most impressive game settings. In the video settings, you can change the resolution, enable full screen, set an FPS limit, all the good stuff that most indie games provide. But Jotunnslayer actually includes AAA level settings. You can alter the texture quality, the lighting quality, it even includes FSR and DLSS, as well as the ability to toggle the gore in the game. The audio settings are also nice and customizable, with the ability to alter each audio setting individually. You can change the UI and the HUD settings to match your preferences. I didn't feel the need to change any of this, but I did have to disable the damage values, which I'll explain a little bit later on. And the game has fully remappable keybinds, which I'm always happy to see, as well as the ability to enable mouse-only mode, which I think is quite cool. The game does include native controller support as well, and the controller buttons are completely remappable. I did ask in the Jotunnslayer Discord if the game is playable on the Steam Deck, and a spokesperson from Grindstone let me know that the game is playable but is not verified yet, which doesn't bother me that much. There are so many games on the Steam Deck that aren't verified that are perfectly playable, and Jotunnslayer is no exception. I booted the game up on my Steam Deck and got a perfectly playable 45 FPS for the majority of the raid, although when I got close to the end and there was plenty of mobs, the FPS did drop to around 30. But the game was cranked to the max, and I think if I dropped the settings, I would easily get a very stable 60 FPS, so to me, perfectly playable. Another cool feature that the game has is Twitch integration, which means you can give your Twitch viewers and chat the ability to dictate how your game will go. They have complete control on which power-ups to pick, which modifiers to add, and many more. I enabled it when I first streamed the game, and it did lock me out of being able to pick my power-ups, and I'm not 100% sure how it works. There wasn't any kind of chat bot or anything like that, so I'm actually not sure how the viewers would vote, but either way, pretty cool feature. Anyway, enough of the settings, let's talk about the gameplay. When I first booted up the game, I was met with that cool Norse aesthetic, and the menu music just kind of gave me that feeling. You know those moments where you'd get a new game on release day and you just get that feeling when you load up the game and you hear the OST for the first time? I genuinely had that feeling with this game. For an indie game, they have knocked it out of the park in terms of looks and feel as soon as you boot the game up. As Jotunnslayer is a bullet heaven roguelike, the objective is simple: survive the never-ending onslaught of mobs for a set time depending on difficulty, all while completing objectives, tackling mini-bosses, and slaying an actual Jotun yourself to end the raid. You have the choice of 2 classes to start, with 2 more unlockable, 1 melee class in the Berserker, 2 ranged classes in the Seeress and the Revenant, and 1 kinda half melee half ranged in the Flame Sister. After a few playthroughs with the different classes, I found the Revenant to be the best for how I play, which is basically just run and embrace the chaos with no strategy whatsoever, while my least favourite is definitely the Flame Sister, as I found her half melee half range gameplay frustrating and just not to my taste basically. Berserker's great fun to play, just smashing everyone's face in, but I struggled a bit with the close range combat, and Seeress is very similar to the Revenant, but for some reason the Revenant just took my liking a bit more. As the game is in early access, there are only 2 maps playable at the moment, Niflheim and Muspelheim. There are modifiers unlockable in the game, such as the ability to make the difficulty easier with the payoff of a 50% reduction in rewards, or the ability to make the clock run down 20% faster while your movement and attack speed is 10% faster. I do like the addition of these as it keeps the game fresh and gives more incentives to play other than just the 2 maps that are currently available. Once you've picked your class, map and modifiers, you're thrown into the game and the madness begins. At first it does feel a little bit slow, so to speak. The first mobs are just these alien bug things and you only have your 1 attack and weapon skill. It wasn't until I quickly started leveling up that I realised just what's so good about this game. The way the leveling system works is, When you level up, you'll get the choice between 2 random sets of skills. It can either be a class skill, which would be a moveset specific to your class, or it can be a god skill, a gift from the Norse gods to help you get through the battle. The way the skills works is, there are passive skills, which will for example give you 1 HP per second health regeneration, or there are autocast skills, which will autocast a move to help you take down mobs. My 2 personal favourites are Thor's Thunderstorm skill, which will strike down mobs with a number of lightning bolts, or Freya's Divine Wave, which casts a lovely golden wave from your character that not only damages mobs, but pushes them back slightly. That one specifically is hugely beneficial when you're swarmed with mobs and you need a millisecond to breathe, which does happen a lot. The game isn't just surviving waves of mobs though. In each raid there are multiple objectives to complete in the time frame, including collecting mushrooms, closing a portal, and even surviving in an ice state, which slows your character's movement down for 60 seconds. Once you've completed all the objectives within the time frame, you can either just run the clock down, but this won't count as a completed raid. The way to actually complete the raid is, once the objectives are complete, you can summon a jotunn, a huge mob with huge HP, and if they hit you, huge damage. You'll have to defeat the jotunn while surviving its attacks, as well as still surviving the oncoming horde. And once you've beaten the jotunn, that's the raid complete. Throughout the raid, you will pick up coins and XP. The XP is for leveling during the actual raid, but the coins are to be converted into skill points once the raid is complete. You can then use these skill points to upgrade not only the classes, but the gods too. Even though the first raid is technically easy difficulty, I still found it quite difficult, and once I'd unlocked normal, I thought, surely this can't be that much harder because that was already solid. Well, I was wrong. The step up from easy to normal felt like the step up from medium to expert on Guitar Hero. I felt like I'd gone from Zorro slicing everything up to Tony Chopper running and screaming for my life. As I had to complete Niflheim on normal difficulty to unlock Muspelheim, I made it my solemn vow to persist and get through without using the aptly named Brave Chicken modifier to make the mobs easier. And after multiple deaths and lots of swearing, I did finally manage to get through it, and trust me, the intensity of reaching the Jotun at the end was ridiculous. I genuinely felt like I was playing the final mission of Halo 3 on Legendary again. My wife actually said to me, "Liam, why are you out of breath sat down playing a game?" Of all the highs and lows marriage brings, I imagine my wife seeing her husband heavy breathing, looking like the Warcraft guy from South Park, is probably one of her low moments. And as ridiculous as that sounds, it's actually a huge testament to how fun this game is. In terms of the core layout of the raid, the developers could not have done a better job. The raid is difficult, the objectives keep it from feeling stagnant, and that final Jotun battle makes the end feel epic and gives you that sense of achievement when you complete it. I've never really played a game like this before, but the vividness of the god skills on my OLED monitor was breathtaking. The experience of hearing the crack of thunder with the lightning bolts striking down was just so cool. It's just so easy to fall in love with because it's so visually striking. As good as the game is though, there are a few negatives, as to be expected with an early access game. The biggest issue for me though is that the mouse was able to move over to my second monitor even when the game is full screened and in gameplay. Obviously in the chaos I'm just going crazy clicking everywhere, and multiple times the mouse moved over to my second monitor, and when I clicked it paused the game. At one point when I was streaming it moved over and I accidentally clicked back onto my starting scene on OBS. It's not a huge issue, but it's definitely one of them quality of life things that needs addressing. Another thing is, when you're at the latter stages of the raid and there's just mobs everywhere, the screen can feel especially cluttered. When you're striking like 7 mobs per second and it's showing damage values, it's all over the screen and it's really chaotic. That's actually the reason why I disabled damage values like I mentioned earlier in the video, but after turning those off, it did feel a lot less chaotic and cluttered, and it feels a little bit nitpicky to even bring it up because the devs have obviously thought about it. That's why they've included the ability to disable the damage values. And one other tiny small thing, when you're going to convert coins to skill points in the skill tree, you have to hold the mouse button down to purchase them, which is all well and good, but when you actually purchase them it doesn't make a noise. A minor detail, but the first time I played it I didn't actually realize that I'd managed to convert the points, so I tried to do it a second time and I was like, what's going on? But if there was a sound to indicate that you've done it, I would have known straight away. Just a little thing. Anyway, overall thoughts. The game is currently available on Steam for £8.49, and in my opinion, that is an absolute steal. The game runs great, giving me a smooth 120 FPS on 1440p. Not only that, but the game looks great, feels great, and sounds great. With the very minor issues taken into consideration and the fact there's still more content to come, I'm going to give Jotunnslayer a solid 8 out of 10. The game is great and was an absolute blast to play. I would 100% recommend trying this game if you're into these type of games, and even if you're not into these type of games, I would still recommend it. I'd never played a game like this until I played Jotunnslayer, and I'm so glad that I did, because it's opened my eyes to a whole new subject genre that I'd never played, and I will definitely start playing from now on. Comment down below if you've played Jotunnslayer and let me know what you think of it. And please don't forget to like and subscribe to be notified for the next episode of the Indie Game Review.